And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
There's a lot of themes in games that I play that some people love and then some people hate. But there's one theme which I have a hard time getting to the table, and that's this of Saigo no Kane, which is basically a game about a Japanese high school in which you are trying to take one student and get enough students behind you so that your student becomes the student body president. And with very strong anime artwork on the cards and on the pieces, it certainly is one when I say, do you want to play this game? Well, don't you have Memoir 44? Some game with a more manlier theme, I suppose. But it's an interesting game. Let's look at a little bit on how it plays. Here are the 6 character cards that you can have that are basically just different characters that you will control over the course of the game, and you pick these characters. Now, there's really no difference between starting characters on most of their things. They have a few special abilities on their cards, but they have a different colored background, which shows kind of what group they're from. I would say more what clique they're from. Like the blue guy, he's from no group. He's from the independents, the folks who aren't around with anyone. But then you have what we would call your jocks. You have the people who are smart. You have the popular people and the bookworms. And during the course of the game, what these characters are doing is they're collecting 2 things: money and popularity. You'll use popularity to recruit more students to your cause. And as the game goes by, there's different students. They have different costs in popularity. For example, here's a student. To recruit him to your team, costs 4 popularity. Each turn, he's going to provide an extra money for you, an extra $1 or so. And then he also has 2 different skills down here that he can provide to your team. Or 3, I'm sorry. He'll provide you 1 of the science, 1 of this green one, and 3 of the gray one. I'm just going to call them by colors because even though they are different skill types, over the course of the game, you're not too concerned about that. But those skill types are important because you're going to be using them as the elections near. Here's the board, and the board takes place over 5 different turns. And on each turn, players are going to be doing a few things. First of all, they're going to be deciding which of these issues they're going to be taking part in. And each issue has a certain amount of requirements. For example, this issue here, you need to have 2 popularity, 5 of the pink resource token, and 1 of the yellow science resource token. And if you have all 3 of those things at the end of a round, and no one else does, you'll get these 4 votes. If someone else also has all 3 of those things, you'll split the votes. But even if you have only a couple of these things, you might get these rewards over here, either $4 or 2 teacher cards. And so, as each game takes place, or as each round takes place, you're going to be using your students and your money and your fame. You'll be using fame, or popularity, to recruit new students to your cause. You'll be using money to pick up different items, which will give you different abilities. For example, this item here gives you +1 popularity every turn, and will give you more popularity if you have students of a specific color on your team. This one does the same thing. It gives you money every turn, and if you have students who have a red background on your team or on your clique or what have you, you'll get even more money. And so that's an interesting feature of the game, trying to get people to get together whole groups of people. But it's all coming down to these cards, and even more so because in the final round, special cards are put down that give you a whole lot of votes, depending on if you've met all these different requirements. Students that you have on your team can be, well, the game calls it whatever you might. Well, who cares what it's called? It's tapping. You can tap them and get their resources that are printed on there. And then you can even discard them again to get those resources. But there's ways to untap the students and use them again. And one of the rewards for the challenges are teacher cards. And teacher cards usually do 2 different things. They either can cancel other teacher cards, or they might be able to convert popularity. You might be able to switch out an item you have with an item on the board, and so on and so forth. At the end of 5 years, or the 5 turns, whoever has the most votes is the winner of the game. All right, let me talk about a few facets of the game here. First of all, there's some minor component problems, and maybe you might even consider them major. When it comes to deciding which event you're going to keep your pieces in and keeping score of the game, you're going to be using these tokens, which are supposed to fit in these plastic stands. They do not fit in there. You could actually force them into these stands, but you'll ruin the piece by doing so. It's really annoying. I mean, did they not catch this? Also, some of these cards have the wrong colored backs for the color. You know, the blue ones, the ones that you use for the first 4 rounds, have blue backs, and then the orange ones, the ones that you use in the last round, are supposed to have orange backs. So here's an orange front and a blue back. Kind of annoying. I mean, it's workable around, but just other than that, I really do like the heart-shaped wooden pieces and the yellow coins. That's really easy to distinguish between money and popularity. The cards themselves are very clear. There's not much text in the game at all. Everything has icons, and these are easy to understand. The game itself is an interesting one. The idea of electing a student president and getting students behind you, I like it. I think it might be a little too anime for some folks. I had a little bit of trouble with some of the illustrations myself. Like, come on now. But so be it. That's going to be the theme's going to be a plus to some people and not to others. The teacher cards are tremendously powerful and very negative towards others, but I do not understand why 1/3 of the cards in the deck, 2 of the 6 different teachers that you can draw, cancel other teacher cards. So in a multiplayer game, you play a card, you just expect to have it canceled because everyone has these cancel cards in their hand. I was a little not so thrilled about that. The tokens, where you get the different resources for your team, the science and the arts and the popularity tokens, these are a nice idea, but for some reason you run out of them at the end of the game. You're supposed to, but it just almost seems contrived in the sense that you're too late. I know you needed 3 sports to win the game. You didn't get that 3 sports. There's no way you can get it. Just sit there and lose. I don't know. But the game itself is very quick. You buy, you know, on your turn. Are you recruiting a student? Are you taking an item? Are you getting some? Are you going to get some skill sets? What are you going to decide to do? And it's all about getting all those important votes. And there's most of the way to get votes is by doing those different agendas, but there are also items that might give you votes. A few students are popular enough to give you votes on their own too. I enjoyed the game. It just feels like it's unpolished. Like they could have done a little bit better with the teacher cards. They could have made everything just even out a little better and maybe did a little bit of component checking. So it's not a bad game. It's not one that I can really recommend to most people unless everything I said sounds really interesting to you and maybe you're really a big fan of this theme, then I would certainly check the game out. For everyone else, I might wait to see if they come out with a 2nd edition and then try that one.
Thanks for joining us today. For more written, audio, and video reviews, as well as the #1 board game podcast, check out the website at www.thedicetower.com. Until then, this is Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.